Not toward a stranger, not toward an enemy, but toward the man the world called the greatest. Joe Frazier didn't hate Muhammad Ali because of the punches. Those healed. He hated him because of the words, because of the laughter, because the world cheered while his dignity was stripped away. 3 legendary fights ended. The crowd went home. History chose its hero, but the anger never left. 30 years passed. Then one day, a letter arrived. No cameras, no reporters, no audience. Just a few sentences written by a man who had finally grown quiet enough to understand the damage he once caused. What was written in that letter didn't just change a rivalry. It changed how greatness itself should be measured. This is not a boxing story. This is a story about ego, about pride, about forgiveness, and about the moment when even the greatest man alive realized that winning was never the same as making peace. Stay with this story, because by the end, you may realize that the hardest fight any man ever faces is not in the ring. It steps with the truth he avoided for decades. When people remember the rivalry between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, they remember the violence, the broken jaws, the swollen eyes, the brutal rounds where neither man refused to fall. But Joe Frazier did not carry hatred for 30 years because of punches. Punches end when the bell rings. Words don't set. Ali understood something very few fighters ever did. Boxing was not just physical, it was psychological. He knew that if he could break a man's confidence before the fight was already half won. So he spoke, and he spoke loudly. Ali mocked Frazier relentlessly. He turned him into a caricature. He made the crowd laugh at him. To the audience, it was entertainment. To Ali, it was strategy. But to Frazier, it was humiliation. Because Frazier didn't see himself as a villain. He saw himself as a hard-working man who fought his way out of poverty with discipline and pain. He didn't crave attention. He didn't crave applause. He craved respect. And every time Ali spoke, that respect felt stolen. The dangerous thing about words is this: they don't bruise the skin, they bruise identity. Ali Sepp's insults didn't attack. Frazier Sepp's boxing. They attacked his worth. And once a man feels stripped of dignity in front of the world, something changes inside him. Frazier fought Ali with fury, but he lived with resentment. That resentment followed him long after the cheers faded. Lesson 1 teaches something uncomfortable but essential. You may forget what you said. The world may forget what you said. But the person you said it to never will. Ali went on to be celebrated as a poet, a prophet, a hero. Frazier went home carrying the echo of every insult. This is the silent damage of words spoken without restraint. Strength is not just knowing how to speak loudly. It is knowing when silence would be kinder. Ali mastered the art of winning minds, but at the cost of another man, Sepp's peace. And that cost did not disappear with time. It waited. Because wounds caused by fists heal with rest. Wounds caused by words heal only when truth finally arrives. The world remembers Muhammad Ali as a symbol, a voice for justice, a poet with fists, a man larger than the sport itself. But history has a cruel habit. When it lifts one man into the light, it often pushes another into the shadows. Joe Frazier lived in that shadow, not because he was lesser, but because he was quieter. Frazier didn't dance for cameras. He didn't provoke microphones. He didn't turn pain into performance. He simply showed up, every time, and fought. And yet, when the world told the story, it became the story of Ali. Ali Sepp's courage. Ali Sepp's exile. Ali Sepp's return. Lilistus greatness. Frazier became a footnote. Even though Frazier beat Ali when it mattered most. Even though he fought through injuries that would have ended most careers. Even though he carried the sport on his back during Ali's absence. Public glory is loud. Private pain is silent. And silence is dangerous. Because when the crowd stops cheering, a man is left alone with questions. Why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't my sacrifice remembered? Why do they chant his name when I paid the same price? This is where resentment is born. Not from jealousy, but from erasure. Joe Frazier didn't hate Ali because Ali was great. He hated him because the world forgot that he was too. Lesson 2 reminds us of something uncomfortable. Recognition is not distributed fairly, and the absence of recognition can hurt more than failure. Frazier didn't need statues. He didn't need documentaries. He didn't need praise. He needed acknowledgement, to be seen, to be named, to be remembered as more than the rival. But history often chooses a single hero and simplifies everyone else into obstacles. That simplification slowly breaks a man's spirit, because when your entire identity is reduced to someone else's journey, you begin to feel invisible. And invisibility breeds pain that no championship belt can heal. Public glory can make a legend, but it can also leave another man bleeding quietly, where no one is looking. People like to believe that time fixes everything, that if you wait long enough, anger fades, that wounds soften, that memories lose their sharpness. But Joe Frazier waited 30 years, and the anger was still there. Not loud, not explosive, but heavy. Time passed, but nothing changed, because nothing was addressed. This is the mistake many people make. They confuse silence with healing. Frazier never sat down with Muhammad Ali to clear the air. Ali never truly explained himself. The world moved on and expected Frazier to do the same. But unresolved pain does not expire. It settles. It becomes part of how you see the world, part of how you see yourself. For Frazier, the rivalry never ended. It followed him into retirement, into interviews, into old age. Every time Ali's name was celebrated, the past reopened, not because Frazier wanted to relive it, but because no one had ever acknowledged his side of the story. This is the truth of Lesson 3. Time can cover wounds. Only understanding can close them. You don't heal by waiting. You heal when someone finally says, "I see what this did to you." Ali was young when the rivalry burned hottest. He was performing for the world, playing a role bigger than himself. Frazier was living his reality, not a role. And for decades, those two realities never met. Until time finally stripped Ali of speed, strength, and noise. Only then did space open for reflection. Lesson 3 teaches something painful but necessary. If pain is not named, it survives forever. Silence does not bring peace. Avoidance does not create closure. Only truth does. And the truth had been waiting, patiently, for both men to finally be ready. When Muhammad Ali was at his peak, the world saw power. Speed that defied physics. Confidence that filled arenas. A voice that could command millions with a sentence. Ali Sepp's strength was undeniable, but it was also loud. At his peak, Ali conquered opponents. He conquered cameras. He conquered the narrative. But true strength is not measured when everything is going your way. It is measured when nothing is. Years later, Ali was no longer untouchable. His body slowed, his voice softened. The world that once followed his every word now spoke for him. And in that quiet, something changed. Ali was no longer performing. He was reflecting. For the first time, the noise of fame fell away, and Ali was left alone with memory, with the things he said, the things he never corrected, the pain he may have caused without fully realizing it. This is where strength took a different form. Not in fists, not in bravado, but in humility. Ali could have stayed silent. History already loved him. There was no pressure to revisit the past, but instead, he chose to reach back, privately, to Joe Frazier. No crowd, no applause, no redemption tour, just a letter. That choice required a different kind of courage, because admitting fault is harder than denying it, and humility costs more than pride. Lesson 4 teaches us this. Strength at your peak is impressive. Strength at your ending is meaningful. Ali's greatest victory may not have been in Manila or Madison Square Garden. It may have been the moment he accepted that greatness without compassion is incomplete. And only a truly strong man can face his past, not to defend it, but to take responsibility for it. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. People think forgiveness means pretending the pain never happened, that it means excusing behavior, that it means surrendering pride. Joe Frazier knew better. For decades, he held on to his anger toward Muhammad Ali, not because he enjoyed it, but because letting go felt like losing the last piece of justice he had left. That anger became proof. Proof that what happened mattered. Proof that the humiliation was real. Proof that he had not imagined the disrespect. When you forgive too quickly, people fear something dangerous, that their pain will be minimized. So Frazier didn't rush forgiveness. He carried it. And carrying it cost him more than anyone ever saw. Because anger does not only burn the person it is aimed at, it burns the one holding it. Every mention of Ali reopened the wound. Every interview dragged the past into the present. Every celebration of Ali's legacy reminded Frazier of what he felt was stolen. Forgiveness didn't feel noble. It felt like betrayal of himself. Then the letter arrived. Not loud, not public, not defensive. Ali didn't explain away his behavior. He didn't blame the times. He didn't hide behind showmanship. He acknowledged pain. That acknowledgement changed everything. Because forgiveness rarely begins with an apology. It begins with being seen. In that moment, Frazier was no longer the villain in Ali's story. He was a man whose dignity had been wounded. Lesson 5 teaches a truth many people avoid. Forgiveness does not rewrite the past. It releases the future. Frazier didn't forgive Ali to make Ali feel better. Ali was already loved by the world. Frazier forgave because hatred had taken 30 years and offered nothing in return. Forgiveness didn't erase the rivalry. It didn't erase the insults. It didn't rewrite history. But it loosened the grip of resentment. And that grip had been tightening quietly for decades. This is the hardest part of forgiveness. You don't forgive when the pain disappears. You forgive when you decide you've carried it long enough. Forgiveness is not weakness. Weakness is allowing someone who hurt you to continue controlling your peace long after they are gone from your life. Joe Frazier didn't forgive because Ali deserved it. He forgave because he deserved rest. And that is the lesson most people miss. Forgiveness is not about closing the other person's chapter. It's about finally opening your own. Most people believe legacy is built in moments of glory. Championship nights, standing ovations, headlines frozen in time. But legacy does not belong to your loudest moments. It belongs to your final ones. For years, Muhammad Ali had already secured his place in history. He didn't need approval. He didn't need forgiveness. He didn't need to correct the past. The world had already chosen him as the greatest. But that is precisely why what he did next mattered. Ali understood something most people never do. History remembers what you choose to leave behind. And silence, when correction is possible, becomes a decision of its own. Ali could have let the rivalry stay unresolved. He could have allowed Joe Frazier to remain the angry footnote to his legend. But instead, he acted, quietly, privately, without witnesses. A letter. Not for the public. Not for reputation. Not for applause. A letter meant only for one man. And in that act, Ali redefined his legacy. Because legacy is not about being flawless. It is about being honest, even when no one is watching. For Joe Frazier, that letter mattered not because it erased the past, but because it changed how the ending would be told. He was no longer trapped in a story that ended with bitterness. The final chapter now included recognition. Lesson 6 teaches us something deeply uncomfortable. You are remembered not only for what you achieved, but for what you corrected. Many people cling to pride in their final years. They protect their image. They avoid difficult truths. But Ali chose humility over image. And humility reshapes memory. This lesson reaches beyond boxing. Every relationship, every rivalry, every conflict. There is always a final act. Something you say, something you avoid, something you repair, or refuse to. That final act becomes the lens through which everything before it is viewed. Ali Sepp's fists built his fame, but his final actions refined his legacy. And Joe Frazier's story, once filled only with resentment, was finally allowed to end with dignity. That is the power of choosing how your story closes. Because the ending does not erase the past, it gives it meaning. The world called Muhammad Ali the greatest, not because he never failed, not because he never hurt anyone, but because he dared to live loudly in a time that demanded silence. Yet greatness, real greatness, is not the absence of mistakes. It is the courage to face them. Ali Sepp's story is often told as a straight line, from brilliance to exile, to triumph to legend. But real lives are not straight lines. They are circles, and eventually, every circle brings you back to the people you left behind. For Ali, one of those people was Joe Frazier, a man who stood across from him in the ring, and carried the weight of that rivalry long after the final bell. Muhammad didn't need redemption from the public. The public never stopped loving him. He needed redemption as a man, because when the noise fades, applause no longer fills the room, and strength leaves the body. One question remains. Who did I hurt on the way to becoming who I am? That question haunts the greatest and the ordinary alike. Lesson 7 reveals the most human truth of all. No title, no legacy, no greatness exempts you from accountability. Ali understood, near the end, that charisma does not cancel consequence. That intention does not erase impact. That jokes spoken for entertainment can become wounds carried for a lifetime. Redemption did not come from another victory. It came from acknowledgement, from choosing honesty over comfort, from admitting that greatness without empathy is incomplete. And this is why the letter matters more than any belt. Because it shows us that redemption is not dramatic. It is quiet. It does not demand forgiveness. It does not force reconciliation. It simply offers truth and leaves the rest to time. Joe Frazier did not suddenly forget the pain, but he no longer had to carry it alone. Redemption does not rewrite history. It allows history to breathe. This lesson is not about Ali or Frazier alone. It is about every person who has ever said, "That was just who I was back then." Growth is not saying that sentence. Growth is returning to the people affected by who you were and taking responsibility. Even the greatest need redemption, because greatness is not proven by how high you rise. It is proven by how honestly you look back and how bravely you choose to make peace with the truth. Two men walked into history as rivals. The world remembers the punches, the noise, the spectacle, but the most important moment between them did not happen in a ring. It happened in silence. A letter, a few honest words, and a lifetime of weight finally set down. Joe Frazier didn't stick to erase the past. Muhammad Ali didn't undo his mistakes. But something greater happened. Understanding replaced bitterness. Humility replaced ego. And respect arrived, late but real. This story reminds us that no matter how strong you are, no matter how famous, no matter how admired, there is always someone carrying the weight of your words, and there is always time, if you choose it, to make peace before the final bell. Because in the end, the greatest victories are not remembered by history. They are felt in the hearts of the people we finally choose to honor.